Hi guys, my name is Austin Narona and this is my first YouTube video where I'll be doing a voiceover. So I hope you like it. So today we are going to talk about JavaScript and prototypes. How is it used and why is it important to learn? These are some basics where with the new frameworks it becomes really important for us to understand how these prototypes are being used. In every framework, it can be Angular, React, or any other frameworks and libraries, prototypes play a very important role, and we need to understand how it works, how do we implement it, and most importantly, how do we use these techniques, for debugging. Because the main reason why people use prototypes is because it's loaded in the memory only once, but all the instances of that particular object gets those functions and variables. So without further ado, let's get started. Thanks. So let's talk about prototype. What is a prototype? Prototype is actually a object that is associated with every function and objects by default in JavaScript. Prototype property is accessible and also modifiable by every instance of that object, but it is not visible. What do you mean by that? By default, JavaScript inherits, or any function you create inherits the properties from its uh, parent class or function. By default, it's the window object model. So there are some default properties already associated with your function. You would always see functions like toString, the default constructor, get set. These are some properties already assigned to your instance. Do all JavaScript objects have a prototype property? The answer is yes. Every JavaScript object has an internal prototype property. It's often called, proto. You can always see it, in your console log. It's mentioned as underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, which points to the object from which it directly inherits. So let's take an example of a simple object over here. The object is, created, and you see that it has two functions already assigned, or the properties assigned to that object. One is the constructor by default, and there is a function called toString. Now, when you create an instance of this particular object, you would automatically inherit the properties of the parent object. So, constructor and the toString function will be accessible to you. You can modify it during the course of your program. So, why prototype is used in JavaScript? Prototypes allow us to easily define methods to all instances of a particular object. You can look at it as a model. You create a model around a particular function and define the properties of that model, which is accessible to the next model which is associated to it. Why this becomes useful is because these functions or properties are stored in the memory once, and every instance of this object can have access to this. Let's take a look at this example student function. Here I have a function which takes in full name, age, and education, and has a small function called print bio, which simply prints the name, age, education of that is defined as from its property. So I have created an object or an instance of student by passing Austin 30 and graduate as the arguments. So let me first print the student object. As you can see, I have the properties full name, age, education, and the function print bio. But when I call the print bio function from the instance, I can actually print the name, age, education as defined from its inherited property. So I have printed out the student instance, and here you can see I have the properties age, education, and print bio. Also, I have the default proto function which is attached to it and its properties. So by default I have the constructor of the student function and its properties of that is defined by the parent object from the window. That is constructor has own property toString, get, set. You also have to understand that there is a chain of prototype, and at the end of the chain the value is null. That makes the properties complete, so we don't have any further properties to that instance. So thank you for watching this video and keep following us on Buzzing Code. This is my first video, so I hope you like. Thank you. Bye. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button now and also hit the bell icon to get the latest videos from my channel.